and spending some time to hear about what's happening at this site for 500 and 508 Edgeworth Avenue. Just so everyone's aware, we are recording, and just so you're, in case you know people that couldn't make it. In case you don't know who I am, I'm Councillor Kavanagh, your city councillor for Bay Ward, and we're having oh yeah, I should also let you know it'll be on YouTube as well. I just want to thank you for joining, and let you know that we're doing this with a presentation from Fotan Planning and Design. We do not have a city staff member here, but we do have some responses from the city. So this is the basically the representatives of the developer who are here today. So I'm going to start by acknowledging that Ottawa is located on unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. I'd like to honor the land and the peoples of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, whose ancestors have lived on this territory for millennia, and whose culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. Thank you. So I'm going to start just with a quick overview. The development we're talking about today. The City of Ottawa has received zoning bylaw amendments application for a 24-story residential tower with a 4-story podium. The proposal includes 262 residential units and 123 parking spaces within an underground parking garage. This tower will replace the 2 single-story homes at 500 and 508 Edgeworth Avenue. Now, I have the breakdown of that, but I think that the Fotan team will go over that, so I'll leave it with them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it over to Miguel Tremblay from Fotan, and he'll introduce the rest of the team, and he'll do the presentation from there. Now, questions and answers. There is a question and answer, what do you call it? An app, not an app, but spot for you to put in your question so that we can read them and get answers for you after the presentation. How long is the presentation for, Miguel, roughly?
Oh, less than half an hour.
Okay. Okay, so we'll do questions and answers after. So you put it in the question and answer. I imagine many of them will be the same, that people will have the same questions. So this will be very efficient. We ask that you do questions. Comments won't be read, just questions. So please put things in the form of a question of, what you want to know. And we'll begin there, and we'll see how our time goes. If we have a little bit more time, we might open up the mics. But no, you're asking about chat. No, there's specifically questions and answer feature as well as chats. Now, if you accidentally put it in the chat, that's not the end of the world. But if you put it in the questions and answers, that would be helpful. Kira's going to pass them on to me, so I'll read them out. Okay, that'll be at the very end. Okay, so thank you. So we'll get started. And thank you, Miguel, and your team.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I guess, Jillian, we can maybe share the first part of the presentation. So my name is Miguel Tremblay. I'm a partner at Fotan Planning and Design, and this evening we're representing Antilia Homes for the applications. I'm joined by Kevin Reed, who's the lead architect at RLA Architects. Jillian Henderson is a planner at Fotan, and Doug Fountain is a principal of landscape architecture. So in support of these applications, we typically have to submit a range of studies to the city. In this case here, it includes engineering for site servicing, stormwater, transportation study, environmental, geotech, noise and wind, even a rail proximity study in this case. We don't typically bring these consultants to these types of public meetings. We often don't get questions related to stormwater or wind necessarily. And more importantly, these reports are very technical. and they are reviewed and approved by municipal staff. So for instance, we've submitted a transportation study. We already know that staff no longer have any technical comments related to that, but they're still reviewing the engineering reports and things like that, all with the hope of getting us to planning committee. In terms of the format, Jillian will provide a policy overview and a zoning inventory, including a fairly detailed breakdown of the application that we're requesting. Probably the most important part here, obviously the city has a new official plan, but most importantly in late 2024, the city approved the Lincoln Fields secondary plan. Now that secondary plan supports heights in the 24-story range for this property with a very prescriptive building form, including the 4-story podium. As a matter of fact, all of the properties on the west side of Edgewood, because of their depth, because they're about 58 meters in depth, because of their location on the western edge of the Wood Park neighborhood, and because they're in proximity to the transit station, we're about 150 meters from the station. All of these properties were deemed to be suitable for taller buildings with greater density. Now, you'll hear from Jillian that those heights get lower as you move north away from Carling Avenue, but all of them were deemed to be well suited to support the city's transit station. Although the city approves the secondary plans, it's left to developers to implement the zoning on a site-by-site basis. And there's a range of reasons to do that, in part because, for instance, this secondary plan has very prescriptive policies as to how to do height on this site. And Jillian will walk you through that. And then Kevin will provide an overview of the project design, including site and building statistics, but also how we've achieved some of these things. For instance, there's an obligation to have units fronting onto an obligation to provide a pathway. And then lastly, Doug is going to itemize the open space, amenity space, and landscaping approach for the property. For instance, Doug will speak probably in a little more detail on the pathway that's going to connect this property and the broader Wood Park neighborhood to the transit station via the NCC lands. And we've already started discussions. We're pretty far along actually with discussions with the NCC. So all with that in mind, I'll maybe turn it over to Jillian now to go through everything in at least from a policy and regulatory perspective.
Great, thanks, Miguel, and thank you everyone for your participation tonight. We're here to discuss the proposed development at 500 and 508 Edgeworth Avenue in the Wood Park neighborhood adjacent to the Lincoln Fields transit station. Through the detailed design assessment of the lot fabric on Edgeworth Avenue, particularly the west side of the street, these lots were identified as being suitable for high-rise development because of their uniquely deep lots, which are measuring 56 meters, their proximity to Carling Avenue, and adjacency to the Lincoln Fields transit station. These characteristics are not typical of your standard local neighborhood road within the city and make these streets uniquely placed to accommodate high-rise development. These lots were identified to the city as good high-rise candidates, and city staff then undertook their own assessment, confirming their suitability for development of this scope. The subject site is located in the inner urban transect and designated neighborhood with the evolving neighborhood overlay. Carling Avenue is identified as a Main Street corridor in the City of Ottawa official plan, and lots abutting the Main Street corridor designation and within 120 meters are generally permitted to build high-rise of up to 40 stories where lot size and transition permit. The project team worked with the city during the development of the secondary plan process, specifically as it relates to determining heights along the west side of Edgeworth Avenue. Through this process, it was determined that appropriate building heights range from 30 stories along Carling Avenue with a gradual transition down to mid-rise near Lawn Avenue to the north. Since the lots along this side of Edgeworth are so deep, they can quite comfortably accommodate high-rise development, especially when amalgamated with abutting lots. The secondary plan has general policies for the neighborhood designation, including height transition using low-rise podiums and the general intent and application of the angular plane. The secondary plan also calls for improved pedestrian infrastructure, including sidewalks on both sides of Edgeworth Avenue and improved cycling facilities. It also establishes a requirement for an active transportation connection through the site, specifically a multi-use path linking Edgeworth Avenue to the NCC pathway to the west. The secondary plan sets site-specific policies for the subject property, including having regard for shadow and wind impacts on the Wood Park community, providing a low-rise podium that contemplates the neighborhood character, having residential entrances at ground level, and a public active transportation connection through the property. Because the site is comprised of 2 assembled lots side by side, the height allowance is up to 24 stories. This graphic was prepared by the City of Ottawa and shows the height and massing envisioned for Edgeworth Avenue, as well as the NCC lands to the west, which are shown as the highest buildings in this graphic, planned for 35 stories. The subject site is the 3rd building in from Carling Avenue and is shown as 24 stories in this graphic. The site directly to the south, which is currently an 11-story apartment building, is depicted as a 2-tower site of 28 and 30 stories. This graphic is not intended to be predictive of what will actually be built along Edgeworth Avenue, but is intended more as a volumetric exercise to show what could be built based on the applicable policies of the secondary plan. The site is currently zoned residential second density subzone F. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment intends to rezone the entirety of the subject site to residential fifth density subzone T. The R5 zone is intended to allow a broad mix of residential building types, from detached homes to high-rise apartment buildings, while making sure that development remains compatible with the surrounding character of the neighborhood. The proposed development meets the intent and most provisions of the R5T zone, with the exception of building height. The R5T zone is appropriate for the site since the property is designated neighborhood in the official plan, and the development is entirely residential with no commercial uses proposed. Under the new zoning, the site is zoned N3B, and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment would rezone the site to N6. Similar to the R5 zone, the N6 zone permits high-rise residential development within neighborhoods while regulating built form and neighborhood character. We have an ongoing zoning bylaw amendment application, which is currently underway, and it is proposing to permit a high-rise apartment building. The rationale for high-rise development at this site is supported directly by the official plan and secondary plan policies that permit this form of development, the site's proximity to Lincoln Field Station and Carling Avenue, and the planned height transition along the west side of Edgeworth Avenue. Although it will be the first building of this exact height in the immediate area, it fits within the plan context, which anticipates high-rise development along Carling and mid to high-rise buildings along Edgeworth Avenue. The quality of the design, including the low-rise building and slender tower floor plate, creates an appropriate transition and reduces shadowing while supporting intensification on an underutilized site. We plan on submitting the site plan control application shortly, which will help further refine the details of the proposed development and its design. This slide shows the active transportation connections that are planned. This slide, sorry, including the required pedestrian sidewalk along the frontage of the property, the required multi-use path through the site, and the existing NCC path to the west. The proposed development entails the construction of a 24-story high-rise apartment building with a 4-story podium, a total of 262 residential units. That concludes the policy overview, and I'll now hand it over to Kevin Reed from RLA Architecture to walk you through the design. Thank you.
Thanks, Jillian. I'm just going to share my screen here. Can you guys see the first slide, which is the aerial view? Can you guys see that first slide?
Not yet. No,
Not yet. Okay, just
I
a sec,
can't.
sorry.
I don't know anybody else can.
Can you see it now?
We can, but
Okay,
it's kind of within your browser.
right. Here, let me just switch here. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending. And very anxious to give you guys some more information on the building design thus far. So to be clear, this is just a very kind of I guess you could say early phase of the development of a design. And as mentioned and covered very well by Miguel and Jillian, you could see the context of the site in relation to Carling Avenue and Lincoln Fields, right in the center of your screen there, that large green space. So moving along to our first slide, this is the site plan that Jillian was showing before. Which is really just an aggregate view of all of the levels of the building stacked up. So it's that high-rise portion, which is that dark gray inset volume within the site. And you could see how far in from the site parameters that high-rise portion is. As mentioned earlier, we have 262 residential units proposed over 24 stories of the building. It is a 4-story podium. So trying to use that kind of that low-rise massing to connect with the existing context along Edgeworth Avenue. The site also, at this point, includes about 123 parking spots, all below grade, on 2 levels of parking. So you'll see those now. So this is the P2 level. This is the lowest level of the proposed structure. This has about 70 parking spots. And in the center of your screen, you can see the elevator lobby, and we have some bike storage spaces. As we move up to the P1 level, there's less parking because we've displaced those parking spaces with garbage and recycling collection. Again, we have more bike parking storage spaces at this level. And then, of course, on the Edgeworth side of the site, which is on the right-hand side of your screen, we have utility rooms, mechanical, water entry, and the hydroelectric vault. And at the bottom of your screen is the entrance ramp that takes you from at grade down to this level, and then you circle back around on that to get down to the lowest level on the P2. This is the ground floor. So Edgeworth, again, is at the right-hand side of your screen. And as you move into the building, in that pink shaded area is that entry lobby. The green shaded area is more at-grade bike storage. The green, the gold space at the back of the site there is a large interior amenity space. And at the top of your screen are the first levels of those walk-up units that are both fronting Edgeworth Avenue to the east and to the multi-use pathway across the top of the page there that Jillian had referred to. So that is connecting Edgeworth directly with the NCC lands to the west, to that green space. Oh, sorry, just going backwards. So stepping up in the plans, this is a typical floor plan for the levels 2 to 4. So this is that podium level, which is a larger footprint than the tower above. And as you can see, we've got a mix of 1 bedroom plus study, 2 bedrooms, 2 bedroom plus study, and 3 bedroom units. As we move up the building, you can see that the floor plates contract. So we get smaller and smaller as we move further up. So this is the level 5, and this actually has a condition where these units can access the top of that level 4 of the podium. So they have these large terrace spaces. As we move up to the building, this is the, I guess you could say the mid section of the building. So we're now a typical floor plate for levels 6 to 9. So again, it's not as contracted as that tower plate, but you can see that the building is slowly pulling back from its side lot lines and even the rear lot. And as we move up to, I guess you could say, the typical tower plan, which is levels 10 to 22, the building steps back in even further. And as you can see through these kind of dimension strings that we've indicated at the sides and at the top of the plan, we're meeting and in some cases exceeding prescribed setbacks from property lines for building of this type. And as we move up even further to the 23rd and to the 24th floor, the building gets even smaller in terms of its footprint. At the 23rd floor, it's a good space because there's terrific views of the city and towards the green space to the west. So we have proposed a party room and a gym up there, and those are looking westward to the NCC lands there. And the 24th floor, this is the uppermost floor, is again a return to residential units. So taking a look at the elevations, so these are the, I guess you could say the front and rear elevations. So at the left, you have that very quiet kind of taut face of the building and the podium. All the balconies or private terrace spaces for the podium are inset. And then we have no balconies projecting off that east elevation facing Edgeworth, whereas the elevation on your right is towards the west, which is towards the parkland and the NCC lands to the west. And we have a lot more articulation of balconies and spaces projecting out towards the west. And at the left-hand side of your screen is the south elevation, and at the right-hand side, you have the north elevation. So the left-hand side, again, you have this kind of layering up of materials and form. So this idea that you could have that kind of white kind of figural piece that sits outboard of the actual tower plate proper, and that is a different material from the glass. So it's contemplated to be either masonry or metallic surfaces. And then the podium is currently proposed to be of masonry, probably clay masonry. On the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the articulation of those walk-up units. Those are two-story units. Not, sorry, two stories, but they actually have mezzanines in them, so they're double height inside. So they have that very kind of townhome, I guess you could say, simplicity about them in terms of the form. And we also like the fact that there's that scale of the low-rise townhouse unit that skirts the southern border of that multi-use pathway. These are just some material precedent images. So again, really wanting to use that red clay masonry for the podium levels at ground level up to level 4. And then as we get up to the tower, again, that kind of idea of this layered element that is on top of the glass, something either of metallic or kind of an ivory masonry color. And this is more kind of a discussion piece on those townhome units that are at grade access, so those walk-up units right off the multi-use pathway. We like the idea of actually raising up the entrances to those, so there is this kind of, there are the quote-unquote eyes on the pathway, but people who are using the multi-use pathway don't feel like they're actually looking into units. And kind of keeping things both private and public at the same time along that proposed pathway system. And just a couple of 3D views, taking a look at, again, the kind of the layering up of the cladding. So you have that kind of outboard element of the main podium and the tower. And then this gesture, the right-hand diagram is really a gesture of trying to keep the Edgeworth facade as quiet and as serene and really stepped back from the street as much as possible. So you have the the maximum degree of setback and step back for that east facing elevation. And then you have this more kind of a projected, more articulated response to the west side of the site, where you're going to be actually engaging with those views and those late day sunny conditions. And I think that's that's the last slide I have. So maybe at this time I turn it back over to the VOTAN team. I think Doug Fountain, who's the landscape architect, has a couple things to share with regards to the multi-use pathway, which we see as a really strong element in the site planning.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm going to try and share my screen as well, just because it's easier to point. Let me know if everyone can see this. Yeah, okay. So I guess I'll address probably what many in the community are going to be concerned about. As part of any development application with the city, we do an arboricultural study. So we have had an arborist review the trees that are on site and identify those that are retainable. Given the development program, unfortunately, we're not able to retain the trees that are on the site, and some on the adjacent NCC lands will also be affected. I will speak to that in a little bit, though, because we are planning to do a fair bit of compensatory planting that will also meet some of the city's official plan targets for canopy cover. But I'll speak too about maybe I'll start with Edgeworth. You know, we recognize that there's going to be a character change to what everyone has come to be familiar with as on Edgeworth. There is going to be a sidewalk along the frontage of this building. There are overhead hydro lines which do limit our ability to replant. In fact, there's a few trees along Edgeworth now that have kind of become hazardous because they've been pruned by hydro, and they're at a point now where they are getting to be of a concern. So to replant along the streetscape, we're proposing some shade trees, and the way we're treating the landscape, what Kevin and his team have done is tried to create a feeling of a residential property along the frontage. So the landscape we're actually treating in a similar fashion, so it will read as you're walking down the street as a series of separate residential gardens effectively, and there is a townhouse unit that fronts onto Edgeworth. One of the requirements that the city has outlined for us is the inclusion of this multi-use pathway along the north boundary of the site. This is proposed to be a 3-meter wide, publicly accessible pathway. What Kevin's done with the design of those townhouse, 2-level townhouse units that he just described, we feel will really contribute to that being a very animated and active space, and it will feel very public. And this pathway, as it continues west, will connect with the pathway on the NCC lands and get you to Lincoln Field Station that much quicker. So I'll jump back to the tree canopy. I know that this is something that Councillor Kavanagh is very interested in as well. One of the things that we will be doing when we do submit a site plan application is validating the shade canopy cover that we'll ultimately see on this site. So what we do is, and this is all articulated in city requirements, we project ahead 40 years and look at the mature condition of those trees and what that canopy cover on the site will be. The city has a general target of 40% of any site. Obviously, you can see these shaded areas. We're not able to meet that directly on this site, but we are going to be working with the NCC to look for opportunities on their lands, likely along that pathway, that will get us to that 40% canopy cover or more. And we also look at soil volume as well to make sure that those trees will be able to achieve their ultimate size and give, provide the community with those ecosystem services that we look at. This is just a cross section from the west looking east on the north side of the property. So showing this 3 meter wide asphalt multi-use pathway. And we wanted to show this because those who have seen the plans that were submitted for zoning, there is, the parking garage below extends right to the property limits. And RLA has thoughtfully checked down the slab of the parking garage to give us enough space to plant these large mature trees on the north side of the property. So this will line that multi-use pathway. And we're employing some technologies, soil cells, if anybody's on the call that's familiar with those. This is a system that piece of infrastructure really that allows for root expansion, which equates to a healthy tree canopy that reaches its full capacity. And again, this is just showing this would be the stairways, the stairwells up to the townhouse unit. So we wanted to present this because this is going to be a space that the community will use quite regularly, we anticipate, and we wanted to provide you with a sense of scale and what this would ultimately look like. I think that's all I have for now.
So I think we held ourselves to less than half an hour, which gives us still a full hour if you want. I'll turn it over back to the councillor and Ciara if you want to.
Yeah. I'm going to read off the questions that came in through the questions and answer app. I know some people did not have the Q&A feature, but they put it in the chat or if they sent it to our email even. We will accept that. Okay, so I'll just go back to the questions. How far did you say the development is from the transit station? And I guess from the back point. What's the distance?
It's about 140 meters measured from the back of the property line to the closest edge of the structure as we know it, right? Because we have air photos that show construction where the entrance will be exactly. Here, I can even share this if you want, just to lighten. So I just measured on the city's GeoAuto. I mean, it's obviously under construction, but the intent is that it connects to the NCC pathway and then people will be directed to it. But this is actually the closest development site to the station.
Yeah. Okay. Question, does the 56 meter site depth, does that include city easement?
No.
It doesn't include the easement. Okay.
It's property line to property line.
Yeah. Do you have a shadow study?
We
Yes.
do. Is that something that
Yeah.
we care to see, or?
I believe that has been requested. They'd like to see this shadow study.
All right, just give me 1 second, Councillor.
Okay. Can I'll while you're doing that, I'll just ask another question because it won't apply to you necessarily. Okay, while you're doing that. Will some rental units be allocated as affordable? And if so, how many?
At this point, it's hard to say because I think that's something as you get closer to a site plan approval that becomes, I think, more of a discussion piece. And also it depends on when you go to construction, what the market demands are. So at this point in time, affordable housing targets haven't been identified.
But that's maybe a good segue just to clarify. So we've submitted a zoning amendment, which is essentially the rules of construction. Zoning will tell you how many parking you have to have and form of the building. There will be a later application called the site plan control application that will deal with more technical issues about where the water connection comes into the to the building, what's the capacity of the hydrants, all of those things, the grading, Doug's detailed landscape plan. That has not been submitted yet. That application is required for construction prior to the issuance of building permits. So realistically, we are still probably all in maybe a year till we get site plan approval and make those kind of decisions.
All right. You've got the shadow study up, so we'll see if there's any direct questions on that, but I'll go ahead on what's already been sent in. Are you going to mandate those who have not acquired a parking spot that they can't own a car, that they should not own a car? Being as there's very limited parking in the neighborhood.
You know, our experience is, so there will be two lease structures, one lease structure with access to a parking space. There's also a fair amount of visitor parking spaces. The city is somewhat unforgiving on that point. And then there will leases that will have to be signed where people will fully understand that they can't have a car because they won't have anywhere to park it, and there's just not opportunities for on-street parking.
Does the 123 include the visitor parking?
It does, yes.
What's the breakdown?
It's about 25 visitor parking spots and about 98 of the residential. I'm sorry, Councillor, did you want me to go through the entire shadow study? This is just the first sheet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
I don't
what
know
you're
how long
looking
it
at,
takes, but there's obviously interest.
it won't take me long at all.
Okay.
So we studied 3 conditions. We studied the longest day of the year, which is the summer solstice, which you're looking at right now. These are the first 6 time periods that are calculated for, let's say, June 21st. And I'll just take you through the sheets. So this is at the upper left-hand side of your screen is 8 a.m. on June 21st. And then you could see the shadow becomes shortened as the higher the position of the sun gets. And then as we get to 1 o'clock, the shadow is almost straight down to the ground from the tower there. As we move on through the day, you have 2 p.m. at the upper left-hand side of your screen. And then the last measure that you see at the lower right-hand side of your screen is 7 p.m. on June 21st. And then we go all the way to 9 p.m. For that solstice in this study. And then we take a look at the equinox. So this could be September or it could be March. So the conditions are pretty much the same for those 2 times of the year. So you can see the first measure at the top left-hand side of your screen is 8 a.m. and then 1 p.m. again at the lower right-hand side of your screen. And then we go at 2 p.m. at the left-hand side of your screen at the upper left, all the way to 6 p.m. on, this is September 21st at the lower, the middle section on the lower side. And then the shortest day of the year, the winter solstice, we have 8 a.m. Pretty much everything casts a shadow at 8 a.m. on the shortest day of the year. And then you get to 1 p.m. again on the lower right-hand side of your screen. And then we have a very short measure for the shortest day of the year because the sun doesn't remain in the sky for very long after 4 p.m., which you see at the far right-hand side. So that's it. That's the extent of the shadow study.
Thanks. And can you share that with our office in case anyone wants a copy of that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think there was still interest in the whole idea of the parking, and are you doing any car share? That's actually my question, because I've asked that always. Are you looking at car share for those who do not have a car that might want to have a car share?
Almost every project we do, Councillor, does have car share, just for that reason, because it's just a natural attractor for renters. and for people in the neighborhood if the service is opened up beyond the residents. But yeah, I would consider it an easy yes to that one because it's such a popular usage in the urban context.
Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to. Okay, there's a question about how this will blend into the neighborhood if this neighborhood is single-family homes on large lots. So what is the response in terms of the ability to blend in?
It really gets entirely it's the work of the podium design. So again, here I'm just going to share my screen again. The podium, in it being a 4-story volume, we're really trying to bridge or transition from a high rise to the low rise context, the existing context. So again, with that 4-story volume, and as you can see with some of the articulation of those lower volumes for those walk-up units, those are again this idea of transitioning from a larger structure to the existing context. And through materiality, like a lot of existing context in Ottawa in these older neighborhoods is clay masonry, brick. I know a lot of houses, some of them would have wood siding, but this is a non-combustible building. So we're kind of limited in that regard. So we tend to use masonry products to really bridge that material context and the new construction.
Is another question is about a traffic study. Do you have a traffic study available? Can you share it?
Yes. So a couple things is, yes, we do have a study. Novatech prepared it. The city's, in that case, has already reviewed it and has been satisfied. There is a link. I don't know if everybody's aware. Dev Apps, it's the municipal website, has all of our studies
Right.
posted. Again, we chose not to bring our traffic consultant here because the city is now satisfied with, and to be perfectly honest, this site is going to be all about different modes of transportation, including the proximity to the station.
Yeah. And during construction, how will the traffic be managed with trucks, etc.?
Jillian, I don't know what you come.
So during construction, and especially with the design of the driveway, the driveway in and out of the site is located at the southernmost end of the property. That is strategically intended to keep traffic away from the neighborhood and keep it closest towards Carling Avenue and onto the site.
Yeah, I guess the concern is that's one of the major entries into the community since there's not very many. So it's the only one with a light. So it's going to be busy. So there's concern on that side.
And taking it a step further, I mean, the city does require what's called a construction management plan, where you have to submit your strategy for truck management and trades and everything else, so that you're not being you're being the least intrusive as possible during construction.
Mm-hmm. Okay. In terms of those without car, those who do not take a parking spot, obviously it's difficult. If they decide to have a car and they park it in the neighborhood, they are vulnerable to bylaw and ticketing. That question came up in terms of, how do you prevent them from parking all over the neighborhood? Well, they're taking a huge risk. And this is something that can be dealt with in terms of if you want to put parking restrictions on streets, but of course it applies to everyone. You can't just have it for some and not others. So that is an option that some communities have done. They've reduced the parking so that those buildings cannot have cars parked on the street. So that's one of the things that's been done. I'm kind of answering questions because it's slipping over to the city side when we get into parking on the street. So that's basically it's makes them very vulnerable, and they will get constantly ticketed, and I don't know if they really feel very comfortable living that way. So it's that's how it's dealt with. Let's see. I got the next one. Oh, it was about the pathway. And is it, I'm just gonna go get it. Is it going to be rebuilt, and the NCC pathway?
So there would be some stitching required, connecting the multi-use pathway and the NCC, the existing pathway system.
Mhm.
Because this a bridge section here that you kind of see ghosted in, it doesn't exist. So there'd be some work to be done on the on those lands to the west to connect the existing pathway system.
Okay. And there was a question about, will this site, the multi-use pathway, replace the existing multi-use pathway at the Lawn Avenue Parkette? And no, the answer is no. This has nothing to do with this. It's not one or the other. That one is already in place. At the moment, it's construction is a problem because it's an entry point, but it will be put back. So that's where it is. And there's a question about your discussions with the NCC. How far along are you in planting of extra trees on the NCC land? Because the Woodruff Community Association has been unable to engage with the NCC about their plans for that area. So trees are very welcome, and they'd like to hear more about it.
I can take this one. So we've been working actively with the NCC, both on this application, our zoning bylaw and site plan control application, as well as the NCC's approval process, the FLUTA process. So we've met with them. We've had 2 pre-consultations, and we've discussed our plans here, as well as the tree planting, servicing various other topics as well. And we just received fresh comments from them as well, which we are digging into, which address the tree planting. So for now, we don't have a specific detailed plan on the tree planting. It's ongoing, but as we progress into site plan control, that coordination with NCC will ramp up, and those plans will be ironed out.
Okay,
And
it would be, is it possible you can mention, since you're got a relationship with the NCC, to talk up to them about the Woodruff Community Association, because they have tried to reach out and they weren't getting anywhere, which is not right. So that would help segue what they're
Absolutely.
trying to do. They've made a huge effort, by the way, in terms of planting trees on private property and encouraging people, even before the city started its program. So they're very dedicated, and it would be very helpful. And I can
I'll
get
reach
you in
out
touch with
to
them.
yes, I will reach out to our assigned planner on this file at the NCC, and will request that they respond to the community.
That would be
Are
great.
you referring to the community gardens or just in general off-site plantings?
No, it's not related to the community gardens. That's already land that has been negotiated from the NCC for that purpose. They're talking about further up, further south of the gardens. They'd like to see, they'd like to know what the plans are, and the NCC has not been given us information about what their plans are, because there's a bit of a blank space, because they are going to, if they do development, it would be on Carling, and then this area would be north of that development, but south of the gardens. And this is an opportunity for a green space for the community to use, but also an opportunity to plant trees. So we've been desperately trying to get some information on that.
Well, we may end up accomplishing it for you, because part of the discussion with the NCC is the pathway connection could be tree line to extend Doug's treatment that we're proposing here providing we meet SEPTED requirements and all those things. But the intent is to supplement on the NCC properties. And I think we might be rowing in the same direction in that case. And because it is pretty involved, like just for the pathway, again, with just a pathway and trees, we have to go through FLUTA, which is the federal land use approval process. There will be an NCC board decision on the pathway, which gives you a sense of, and hopefully there's nobody from the NCC on the call, but it gives you a sense of how complicated it is to deal with the NCC on technical applications.
I can imagine. There's a question about electric chargers for cars. Are you going to have them?
Very similar to you, the question with regards to car share, Councillor. Every project we do these days has charging stations. And what we do is we build in extra capacity. So we bring electrical service and conduits to other places in the parking garage, but we don't do a full equipment fit up because we want to be able to scale up as demand scales up in terms of electric vehicles.
Given the price of gas, I would think that it's going to be sooner rather than later, the way things are going these days. And another question about the pathway, who's maintaining it in the winter? Like who's shoveling the snow? And where is the snow going to be stored?
I can also answer. I'll start and Miguel can jump
Oh, go
in. But there will be a public access easement over the multi-use path for the public and the city as well. So the city will be maintaining the multi-use path. And as to where exactly the snow will be moved to, I don't have the details of that right now, but I can imagine it would be removed from site or put onto NCC lands. Again, that might be worth discussing further with NCC as we get into those detailed design and planning topics.
Are you talking on the pathway alongside of this building?
Yes.
You're talking the city has to plow that?
Well, we're going to have to negotiate because there will be public access easements.
Yeah.
In practical terms, Antilia Homes is going to have to maintain it as well. So there'll probably be some sharing because it is also pedestrian entrances for the units. I've heard from other sites, because I'm working on some other sites that are kind of dealing with the same issue, that the city is on the verge of updating a memorandum of understanding with the NCC to help manage this on a more consistent level. Like they're trying to put some parameters to this, because you could imagine there are numerous sites in the city that have public access, private access, and NCC access over those pathways. So I heard recently from staff on another file off Walkley Road that they're getting very close to a memorandum of understanding, which would clarify costs and everything else.
Well, I have been in a battle on this for a while, and I had a victory this year where I got stage 2 involved, and they cleared the path from Carling to the station area, the current station area. And that was a battle. The snow was like 8 feet tall. It was like a mountain. So we got it done. And so I've been obsessed about this. And everyone talks about a path, but there's winter here, and we got to work that out.
Yeah.
And we did get a deal with the Regina development that they would be clearing snow to a certain extent. So just so you know. Okay, I'll get back. There's a question about, are all the units going to be rental? And if so, why are none going to be available for purchase?
So the current, well, not even the current, I'd say the market for the last decade has steered away from condo and has gone to rental. I mean, I don't think I've worked on a condominium project for about 7 years now. And we do a lot of buildings in the Ottawa and the Capital Region. So I think it's just a function of the market. I'm sure it'll come back one day, but at the moment, this is positioned to be a rental building.
There is a question that I think I can answer, but I'll just read it. Will delegated authority for site plan control be lifted in order to assure that the site plan for 508 Edgeworth Avenue will be dealt with at Planning and Housing Committee? And I know the answer is no, because it can't. That ability has been taken away. That used to be. I've done it once, way back with RioCan's Metro grocery store when they first put that project out. And we were able to lift delegated authority on the site plan. But that is no longer possible under the new rules. And this is coming from the province, by the way, that they consider that a delay, and they are not allowing it. So it's left with the city planners to deal with the site plan application. You can correct me if you have any more information on that, Miguel, or?
No, but we, at the end of the day, we won't be able to get site plan approval till we resolve all issues related to the supporting studies and the pathway and all of the things that are expected.
Yeah. But the basic question of delegated authority at planning committee on site plan does not exist. I'd be very happy to do that, but it's not possible anymore. That was taken away. So that's the answer I have. But having said that, can the community work with developers on any particular issues that they have concerns about through the community association?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
Appreciate that. Okay. About the sidewalk, the city is also interested in putting in a sidewalk. I don't know if you're aware of that on Edgeworth. That is in the transportation master plan for active transportation. And I don't know if you've been in touch, but my understanding is that they are open to discussion since you're putting in a sidewalk in front of your building. Are you mandated to bring it right up to Carling, or at least in front of the 11-story building? There's a bit of a sidewalk there, so it's got to match up, obviously.
Our obligation is to construct the sidewalk along the entirety of the frontage. There's a sidewalk on the east side of Edgeworth abutting the plaza right now. That's a concrete sidewalk, although it's kind of busted up, quite frankly. And then there's no actual sidewalk. It's more of a pathway along the 11-story building at 2385 Carling. I mean, the city we'd like to think this would stimulate the city's interest in completing the sidewalk link, either in the event of a redevelopment on that site, or if the city chooses to build it along that portion.
So are you willing to work with the city on, because a sidewalk is proposed? There is no hard, fast decision on what side of the street, but obviously if there's a sidewalk being built in front of the building, it kind of leans that way. But my understanding from staff is that this is a possibility of working together, and I just wanted to know if you're willing to reach out and have that conversation.
I think so, because if it is in the transportation master plan, the city has the ability to do a front end agreement with the developer. So that's something we can certainly talk to them about. That might be a possibility.
Yeah, I can certainly hook you up with staff, but I mean, this is an advantage in terms of that's one chunk that they wouldn't have to do, but they are committed to having a sidewalk on that street on Edgeworth. Okay. Did you study the impact of car lights entering and leaving the garage on property that are directly in front of the entrance of the east side of Edgeworth? And if there is a slope on the entrance, this may mean the property sitting right in front of the entrance will have car lights shining in their living room very frequently.
To be honest, I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. Certainly there's no expectation, but there might be some solutions that can be explored. I mean, there will be landscaping on the edge, on the southern edge of the site. You know, we can take a look at the existing conditions across the street as well and see if there's something that can be done. But interesting, I've never been asked that before.
Okay, I'm just seeing. So we've already established you're willing to work with the Wood Park Community Association on a couple of issues there. In terms of the NCC land and just in overall planning. We do have the president of the Community Association, Sue Milburn, is online. So she's available and we can give you her contacts. Am I missing any questions, Kira? Because I'm kind of jumping around. So who should the Community Association reach out to? Jillian, are you the best person or?
Yes, please reach out to me if you have any questions. You can contact me via email at Henderson, it's henderson@foten.com. Email me and I will respond. Thanks.
And
Okay.
we just got NCC comments on Friday, so we are going to have to round back and resubmit to them, so we can certainly raise their lack of communication with the Wood Park Community Association.
Thank you. Appreciate it. A question about who is in charge of traffic safety and signage during construction. So there's been concern because obviously Wood Park has been very affected by construction, and particularly with stage 2, of course, and as well as infill.
So I mentioned earlier, there is going to be an obligation at the time of site plan. This is still quite early, but for a construction management plan, and that plan has it's vetted through the city, approved through the city before you can get a commence work order, which is the mechanism that allows the developer to go to construction. That construction management plan deals with issues of signage, truck routes. A site office has to be located so that during construction people can have a direct channel, all sorts of things, including certainly signage, hours of operation. You know, all of those things are itemized in that plan.
Do you have somebody who oversees it that can be a go-to person if there's concerns during the
Yes.
construction?
At that time, and again, like, you know, we're maybe a year or two away from that, but there will be an obligation to make the site contractor available for those kind of things. Sometimes they do weekly meetings with the community association. They do all sorts of mechanisms to harmonize construction with the neighborhood.
Okay. A question about how many high-rise developments has Atilia Homes built in Ottawa, and where are they located?
So they're mostly a low and mid-rise builder, but they've bought a significant amount of properties elsewhere now in the city, and we're starting to have a fair amount of active applications.
Okay. Do you have any locations nearby you're aware of?
Not nearby. I mean, I can ask Antilia, maybe there's materials that they'd want to share, and I can channel that through your office.
I'm gonna guess they have a website that has stuff on it, but
Yeah, you know what? I never checked.
they usually do.
Yeah.
Most of the developers do. Okay. I think I've gone through. I'm just gonna check. There was Dave Levesque was saying he couldn't get through on chat or Q&A, and if he still has a question that hasn't been answered, I'm gonna ask him to raise his hand so that I know he's got a question that hasn't been answered. Just gonna ask if I see a raised hand. So I can't, because I can't see everybody on screen. I'm talking about the feature raise hand, not raising your hand physically, because I can't see it. I'm not seeing it, but if there's still an outstanding question, Dave, send it by email to our office. Kira's watching, and let me know if and she'll let me know if there's something that hasn't been answered. Okay, okay, all right, here's a question about water pooling issues. Drainage, I guess is the best way to say it. This has always been a problem. And it still exists. The city has been into the community a few times to deal with specific properties that have pooling of water. And what there, there's a picture showing corner of Edgeworth and Lawn. So what are you going to do about drainage, and what are your solutions in terms of managing?
Sorry, Councillor, is this a question with regards to existing housing with pooling issues or new construction?
Good question. It's related
will-
to the fact that stage 2 is been doing a lot of work in that area. So so it's construction, but it's not housing construction. But there
Right.
is a concern overall, yes, of current developments that are getting water pooling. They showed a picture of 2 ducks swimming in the puddle, so just to give you an idea.
Okay.
So
Yeah. I guess to answer very high level, we have to meet very stringent requirements for water management, both just kind of everyday kind of conditions and major storm event volumes. And the building is designed in such a way to handle all of the water in its entirety that falls within its boundaries. And this is designed in combination with our civil engineering team and the mechanical engineering team. So we have to meet a lot of stringent requirements and criteria. So I suspect what you're seeing with the pooling issues, like you touched on, Councillor, is that large infrastructure projects are displacing large pieces of land, and where you might have had absorption, you might have temporary impervious surfaces. So I think that might be contributing to that issue that you're seeing.
yeah, and I've had this question before for other properties being developed, and where there's a concern about with the neighbors, et cetera, about pooling and drainage problems overall. So you have storage for water collected? Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
well, we would have to do two things. We'd either you do either rooftop controls for anything that's falling within the boundary of the building footprint, or you do a holding tank like a cistern in the underground structure. And then depending on where you are on the site, the civil engineering group will work with Doug's team at FO10 to come up with grading that takes overland stormwater and channels it to catch basins within the site that would be, again, linked up with that stormwater management system.
Okay, and we did get something from the planner, city planner, who shared with us, because this question came up before, that there is sufficient capacity to handle the proposed development for stormwater, because it was the question about stormwater. I'll get to you in a sec, Miguel. And so they've confirmed that there are no sanitary capacity constraints with the development proposed in terms of sanitary peak flow. And with respect to stormwater, the consultant conducted a downstream analysis of the storm system and confirmed the proposed development does not negatively impact the existing system. Lastly, with respect to water, the existing water supply system has capacity to meet the system pressure for both domestic use and fire protection. It's over and above. Sorry about that, Miguel.
No, and just to add, I mean, I don't want people to go look at those studies and feel disappointed, but remember, they are done in support of a zoning amendment, so they're theoretical flows. And then when we do the site plan application, there's going to be much more detailed work. Like Kevin and I did a building at Montreal and Blair where, they had to change manhole covers, a bit downstream and do certain adjustments to the network to make sure that that the system functioned well. So there may actually be benefits that we can't negatively impact drainage, but there may be opportunities when we get to the site plan stage to improve drainage scenarios that are existing today.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay. Kira, is there anything I missed? When is the question, a good question. When is construction meant to start and end?
So we're hoping to get zoning in, I'm gonna say, maybe May, we get the planning committee, potentially. Zoning would be approved in June. We are working on a site plan application. That often takes, despite the developer's chagrin, that could take 6, 8, 9, 10 months to get all the approvals, legal agreements. And then there's a mobilization period. It could still be a year away at least before there's actual construction on the site.
So we're talking probably 2027 or.
Yeah.
Yeah. And are you trying to line it up with the opening of the station? Is that part of the thought process?
I would hope the station would be up and running before this, I mean, it's like Kevin, a 2-year build here, something like that, or probably.
Yeah, I would think maybe even a shade more than 24 months. Buildings of this scale, again, Councillor, in kind of addressing the concerns with upset in terms of traffic and trucks and everything, construction processes get drawn out, sometimes just beyond the 2-year mark for a building of this size. So I could see it being about a 28-month build.
Okay.
So I'm going to
yeah.
hope the station's up and running.
Yeah.
We all do. Yeah, so that's a little later than we thought. We thought that it was going to go to planning and housing earlier than that. So
Staff have said April. We still have to do a resubmission. We still have to resolve the NCC pathway, which is slow moving. So I'm trying to manage the developer's expectations, but staff did say they tried to bring us to April, but I think that's somewhat optimistic.
okay. All right. I'm just going to check and see if there's any questions that did not get answered. I see a hand up. Do I see a hand up? Nope. Okay. No, I don't. But we can still make sure that you get questions sent to you, that if there's anything missed. These, by the way, were very good questions, excellent questions, wide-ranging, and I appreciate it. Particularly keen on the affordable housing aspect, because I think a lot of people expect that when we're doing transit-oriented development and people don't have cars, and the least we can do is make it affordable, because that's what we need. We need affordable living, and we know that there's plans out there, and there's partnerships that can be made to make affordable housing. I'm certainly aware of them, and I'm happy to talk that over with you if you're interested. So, because Ottawa Community Housing does partnerships. So, yeah, great. I'm just checking if there's any new questions. Kira, you see anything?
Oh, one
Oh, yeah.
just popped into the chat, and I was
Okay.
going to say, if people have other questions that haven't been answered and they want to raise their hand and flag them, we still have 14 minutes left in the meeting. So,
Okay. Okay. So the concern is that because Edgeworth and Carling is one of the few entrances into the community, and LRT construction is, has caused issues. Will this be one of the few access points to our community be closed off to traffic at any time during construction? I imagine that when streets are torn up for connections, there are moments when streets are closed off. They're not usually long. They're not usually long-lived.
No, that's right. They try to limit it to just a few hours a day as they daylight the infrastructure. But the construction team will want to be in and out of that area as soon as possible. So it's in their interest to be to the least amount of disruption as well for the neighborhood. Construction crews don't like complaints because it doesn't help. So there'll be every kind of plan taking a look at how to maintain traffic flow and pedestrian safety during
And the
construction.
city charges a very high amount for
Exactly.
road closures. So it's
That's right.
very costly to close a lane, or any, if you're working downtown and you close a lane, it can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's believe me, they have no intention of closing for long periods of time.
Yeah.
And yes, detours would be made
It'd have to be.
if there was a complete closure. It doesn't sound likely. It sounds like it half the street and then, you know, a flagman letting people go one direction or the other direction, something along that line. That's what I've seen from, this is a bigger scale. This isn't just a typical infill. So maybe I'm using it as the wrong example. So is there no full road closures at any time during the construction?
I mean, we're, you know, like I said, there'll be a construction management plan. There may be times, although we think will be brief, that they'll have to close some portions of the road. I wouldn't be able to answer that.
I think this community is had a lot of it been heavily affected by construction, and the LRT construction would be wound down, if not completely finished by then. We all hope. I'm pretty sure. But so it's like it's never ending here. But it's difficult sometimes. So, but I realize that obviously there's got to be underground work and connectivity done, and it'll be in the road, and it'll have to be there'll have to be some kind of closure for period of times. So, okay. All right. I think we've had some excellent questions. Anything else? Just want to make sure. All right. All right. Okay. So I'll just wrap it up then. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening, because this is a big project. There's no doubt about it, and it's pretty different. It did fit in with what's happening at the station. It's close by. Hopefully, the design of it will be helpful to help it fit in better. Nobody's pretending it's a single family home. So, but we hope to see good design. We hope to see it blend into the community as much as possible. As mentioned earlier, the zoning bylaw amendment application could be coming to Planning and Housing Committee in May. And as soon as we know that and got it confirmed, we'll put it in our newsletter. We'll contact the community association and let you know. And it is possible to make a delegation, either virtual or in person, to the Planning and Housing Committee, or send in a written submission. So you still have those options. I want to thank Jillian McGill and the entire team, Kevin and Doug, from FOTAN, for taking the time to meet with the community this evening, and for everybody who's attending. Your questions were great. Appreciate it. And it's great to listen to them and to, you know, keep building on the questions that were asked. I appreciate that very, very much. And I hope the feedback was helpful. As always, if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to contact our office. I think you all know the email, bayward@ottawa.ca. So we'll be sharing this recording on YouTube, and we'll add it to the link to our newsletter. So for those who are unable to attend, they'll have the information available to them. So I want to thank everybody and for coming, and let's hope that freezing rain doesn't amount to much, and have a good evening. Take care.